Hi, Brittany. Hi, Megan. Hi, Haley. How are you? Hi, Andrew.
Trying to stay cool in South Dakota. It's a little warm.
Is it really? How
Yeah.
hot?
Like right now it's not too bad, but like we're supposed to get hit hundreds this week.
Oh no, that
Yeah.
sucks.
And I have an outdoor wedding on Saturday and it's supposed to be 100 degrees.
Oh, jeez. Well, I'm trying to think of any tricks that have worked for me at hot outdoor weddings. I can't think of anything. Wear the right thing other than
Yeah.
that. All right. I think that's, I don't know if that's me or not. Hmm. So I'm getting a read AI request, and I'm not entirely sure if it's me or someone else. Oh, prove it for now. All right. So I am actually on a beach vacation. So excuse the beach hair, but I am still excited to be with you all. I got beach in this morning, and now I get to talk about grant processes. So living the dream. Um, but I do want to start off. I know that at least one new person was going to join us today, and so I thought it might be nice to let's see, actually that was maybe not me. Okay, so I'm going to read stop. So I'm going to ask you a question, but I'm going to give you some choices. So as you introduce yourself, if you could share which SPIDIG you're with and what you do for the SPIDIG, like always. But the more contemporary question, or the question that has to do with something that's been a big deal lately, is about the World Cup. So if you are interested in the World Cup at all, if you could tell us if you could have any team win the World Cup, even if they're already out, but any team that was originally entered win the World Cup other than the US, who would it be? So I'll put the question in the chat. So if you could have anyone, any country, I should say, country, win the World Cup other than the US, who would it be? And then the second question, so that's the fun question. The second question is, what do you want to know about the budget section of the APR? APR. And if you have nothing to do with that budget, I doubt it. You wouldn't be here if you had nothing to do with it. APR budget section. What are your wonderings? Okay. So those are the two questions. So Haley, do you want to start us off since you're already talking to me?
Sure. Um, I'm Haley Miller from South Dakota, and our SPIDIG is math specific and improving math outcomes for special ed students in South Dakota. I have, this is probably embarrassing. I have not watched a single game of the World Cup, just seen clips on my social media.
Uh,
Um, so I couldn't even tell you who I would want to win. I was going to say US just to because that's where I am, but so I couldn't even tell you. Couldn't
okay.
even give
Okay.
you an educated guess.
That's fair though. You haven't watched any of it. And
I
so I think
haven't, not
that's
a
a
single.
fair.
I do have a coworker that's super into it, super into
Uh,
soccer, but I haven't seen any of it.
yeah, got it. And what do you
Um,
have any wonderings about the APR budget section?
I think that what we're working with right now is just carryover. So how that, how that works, where can we
Yeah,
put that extra carryover and all
right.
of that good stuff. But yeah,
That is good stuff. Okay. Thank you, Haley, and thank you for going first.
yep.
Appreciate you. Okay. Megan, are you able, somewhere where you're able to speak? No, for literacy and behavior, got you. Don't follow soccer. Okay. Megan, do you have any wonderings about the APR budget section? All right. I'm going to take that as no. Tara. Is it Tara or Tara?
Tara.
Hi, Tara.
Hi. I work with Megan. So I'm from New York, the State Education Department. We created an MTSSI center. So for the World Cup, I would have to say I'm going to go with Colombia because my brother-in-law is a huge Colombia fan. I know they just lost, so he's pretty upset. But yeah, if it, not for the U.S., I would say Colombia.
Okay. And that's good for me to know because one of my good friends is Colombian and I didn't realize that they had lost. So good for me to go into the conversation knowing that. Thank you. Any wonderings about the budget? I guess the big budget overall if you don't
I'm
the APR.
relatively new, so I'm still learning. So, yeah,
So the basics.
yes.
Got it. I got you. All right. Thank you so much. And Becky.
Okay, just checking that I'm the only Becky, because sometimes we have
Yes,
other
yeah, I know
Beckys.
Becky McIver is another possibility, but I
Yeah,
at least
that's
haven't seen her
okay.
on yet.
Yeah, so I'm the project director for the Georgia SPDIG, and our SPDIG is focused on improving adolescent literacy in grades 4 through 8. Um, so as far as the World Cup, I have no interest in any of that. The only soccer I want to watch is my grandchild playing soccer, so that's about it. But if I had to pick a country, I would say whoever the underdog is. I'm an underdog rooter, right? I think I grew up in a town where we never won anything, so always a special bond with underdogs. Um, and as far as the APR budget section, I would agree with Haley about the carryover. Sometimes really kind of understanding the the drawdowns versus the available balance versus the carryover. Sometimes that's it's a lot, right? Trying to keep all that moving and going in the right direction. So really just
Yeah,
kind of general questions.
yeah, got it. And will you tell us what's the name of your town? I'm guessing you're from a town in Georgia.
I am from a town in Georgia. It's called Villa Rica. It is Spanish for City of Gold. And
Nice.
it is they did gold mining here, so that's hence our name.
Very good. And did they find a lot of gold?
Pretty much. We still have a gold museum here in Villarica. So if you're ever west of Atlanta, about 35 miles off I-20, come see our gold museum.
Thank you, Becky, and it's good to have you.
Yeah.
And Ria.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ria Gill. Was formerly the manager over the team who uh, manages Spadig, but I'm over the manager now who manages Spadig. As far as the team that I'm rooting for now, it's Spain, just because I've been there. I love the people, the food. And then the grant that we manage is for early childhood literacy ages. It's structured literacy for grades K through 2. And I don't know, Jennifer, if I want to say what our concern, we'll just talk about reconciliation of
Yeah,
federal funds. We'll just put it that way so it's
good
sanitized.
wondering. Good wondering. Thank you,
Okay,
Ria.
thank you.
And Beth, you already shared who you were rooting for, and that was mine, Cape Verde.
I lived there for 2 months, so I was like, oh yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, I actually well, it was another lifetime ago, so I don't really speak Creole anymore, but I used to.
Wait, how did you end up there? I know this isn't the topic of today, but I'm very curious.
So I grew up Mormon, and so that was my mission was Portugal, Lisbon South, and Cape Verde. So that was 2 months of my mission. I spent a year in the Lisbon area and then 2 months in Cape Verde. And I don't have budget questions.
Okay, excellent. Good to have you here. Marion.
Okay. Yeah, hi. Yes, I selected England because growing up in the South, I knew very little about soccer until I watched Ted Lasso. And
Yeah.
so I owe Ted Lasso and England every smattering of knowledge that I have of the real football.
Yes.
And regarding the APR, I am still confused on the cover sheet where we have the federal grant funds, the previous budget and the current budget periods. I have gone through our numbers 100 times and I cannot find that number. But it
Mm,
wasn't my call, and
yeah.
I'll believe anything anybody tells me because I
Mm.
watched Ted Lasso, and so there we are.
I think that's a good topic of conversation in and of itself, right? It's that to the idea Rhea brought up of reconciliation, right, between what the budget office says and what you have. Got it. Thank you, Marianne. Paige.
Hi. I also have to say I haven't kept up with the World Cup either, although they just based off of what everyone is saying, I kind of want to watch it now.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll jump on the Spain bandwagon. Sounds great.
Good.
I don't directly. I'm not a manager of
Mm,
our SPDIG in Colorado. I'm just the program coordinator, the administrative coordinator. So I don't know if I have any specific questions, but I like all the topics that have been brought
okay.
up, and I'm hoping I can just learn while I'm here.
Yep. Got it. Great. We're happy you're here, Paige. And Danielle.
Hi everyone. So I also do not follow the World Cup. However, I am rooting for Morocco because I
Mm,
do know that they were in the semifinals back in 2022, and they have knocked out the Netherlands and I want to say
Oh,
Canada. So I've been following them. Also, I have former students from Morocco. So if I
wow,
had
that's
to
cool.
choose a team, that's who I would choose. And since now the United States is no longer involved. And I'm also, and I know it's kind of early, but we are about to start summer camps for NFL. And I'm really hoping that the Chicago Bears do not move to Indiana. That has been on the news for the last couple of months.
Uh,
So I'm hoping that they are willing to negotiate with the governor and the mayor to stay in Chicago. Because if they
mm-hmm,
move, that's going to be a downside for our
mm-hmm,
city.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, but in
Right.
terms of the budget, no, I do not have any questions about anything. I finished my cover letter. I'm just waiting for a wet signature. Since I'm about to have surgery in 3 weeks, I am a little bit ahead of my sections of the APR, so I'm actually almost done. Just because I'll be off the grid for a minute. But so far, so good. I've been using the SIG Network website for things and um, trying to use that as a resource before asking you guys questions. But the other part is this is my second APR I'm writing, so I kind of got the flow. So yeah.
Good. Good, good. So glad to hear it.
Yeah.
All right. And Cliff.
Right. So as far as the World Cup is concerned, I would say that I'm going with France. Since college, I have taken on a lot of friends that were from France, and I've been a couple of times. So France is where I'm at with regards to the World Cup. Before that, it was the US and Mexico. Both have been knocked out. I'm like, both of my teams.
Mm,
So now I'm shifting to France as we continue. And then in terms of the APR and budget in general, there's a lot that I'm learning because I just shifted into the project director role
mhm,
since my partner retired last week.
mhm,
And so I'm just learning all things. I mean, I've gradually been learning over the course of the last year anyway. But with us being in an extension year, the name of the game is spend down, just making sure that people are
mhm.
spending the money that they need to spend.
Right.
So that's what I'm monitoring most closely this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. And so everyone else, I think we're going to have to get to the topic at hand, but it was fun hearing from those who shared with audio. If you didn't get to share, if you could add to the chat what you do, which SPIDIG you're with, what you do. If you want to say anything about the World Cup, you're welcome. If you just want to say something about the APR budget section, you are welcome to do that as well. I'm sorry we didn't have time. But thank you everyone for sharing. I was telling someone the other day about the World Cup that I feel like everyone I know professionally is going to be for whoever the underdog is because that is our field, right? Like we are all about the underdog and we don't give up and we persevere. And I think that's why now I guess I say Cape Verde sounds like Beth, but I was so excited during that game, actually jumping up and down and screaming, which is not, I'm not that big a sports person, because they almost took Argentina. They went into like three overtimes with Argentina, who's supposedly the best team in the world, right? So, and they were the least populous state or country in to be part of the World Cup. So it was amazing. The goalie was, if you want to watch clips of the game on your Instagram or however you want to do it. And I do want to also say, oh, Cabo Verde in Portuguese. Thank you. Um, so I also wanted to add, we have another person here who's never joined us before. Jeff Graham is the new SPDIG director in Arkansas. So welcome, Jeff. Becky McIver let me know you'd be here. Third day on the job. We won't ask you to answer any specific questions about the SPDIG or the budget, but we are glad you're here today. All right, so let's talk. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And then eventually you're going to see an example of a state's APR budget section, because I thought it was a good example. We can see if you think anything is missing. And then we're also going to talk through the budget form. Let's see if I can get to. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and pull up the slides. Okay, thank you for waiting. So, as you know, you're part of GrantWISE. This is our third meeting, and it meets every other month. And I've learned a lot just from what folks need and what would be helpful to you. And it's been nice having folks share information with each other. So, thank you for being open to doing that. So, we want to talk about making that budget section work for you, which means you got to understand what we want from the OSEP side. Sorry, I'm trying to move things around. There you go. So this was a good quote for today. Edward Deming, people just are always quoting him, but thought this was a good one about process. If you can't describe what you are doing as a process, you don't know what you're doing, right? And so that's something I've heard you all talk about working with your budget or your finance office, your grants office, whatever you call them in your state, is that there's some frustration because things aren't written down. There's no processes. So when there's turnover or someone's not available, you don't know how they were doing their work. You don't know, like where can you go in the system to find your answers? So this has come up as an issue. I think we'll continue to work on it. I'm also looking into which TA centers might be able to help us with this. So this is our overall purpose for the group. We want to learn, and this came from grantees. They want to learn how to work with procurement or how to work on procurement, helpful resources for budgeting. You want assistance with APR related budget explanations and other project management and process oriented support as needed. Of course, we know you need it if you tell us you need it. So always feel free to reach out. So today we'll be talking about that APR related budget explanation. We have these two meetings left, September 9th and November 11th. We can continue on if on November 11th, everyone feels like there's still more to talk about. We will reassess at that time. So what you shared once we were together is that you wanted to have an onboarding process for new folks to this PDIG. Potentially also onboarding for folks in your budget or financial office. You wanted to have different scenarios where you can see practical application of best practices for doing these things. 101 training when it comes to budget and processes. Consider quarterly training for SIG Network to you all, and then having processes and procedures written down. And so to help with the processes and procedures, we shared an Excel spreadsheet that's available on the GrantWISE landing page that can help you follow your budget from month to month and work with your budget folks. If you weren't on that meeting and have any trouble finding it on SIG Network, let me know and I'll send you the link. So today we'll talk about new requirements that were in the Dear Colleague letter, and then how that looks in your section B, which is your budget section. We'll discuss how to work with your budget office to get what you need. And that's going to come from you more than from me, since you folks actually work with the budget office and I don't. And then we'll also talk about 2 opportunities to meet at the OSEP conference and the SPDIG national meeting with folks where you can talk in person. All right, so let's get to that APR budget section. Wait, sorry, was I not sharing that whole time? Oh no, I was sharing. Okay, sorry. There was a little green button. So I'm going to first talk over the directions, which we tend to call the Dear Colleague letter. And then from there, I'm going to share an exemplar that Arkansas was kind enough to be willing to share. And again, we won't make Jeff talk about it since this is his 3rd day. All right, so for many of you, this looks familiar. This is the Dear Colleague letter that you received. So these go, I should say, these go to the project director and also and by email, and also to the person who is listed as your authorized representative or certifying rep. They're kind of interchangeable. So this is about the cover sheet and the budget period. You give the numbers from your last budget period on the cover sheet and this budget period. And the directions are generally, it's from the last time you reported. So say it starts like March 1st until February 28th. Unless this is your first year of the grant, in which case it would start from October 1st and go till February 28th, right? So you have a truncated period. All right, so this goes to summary, project status. We're not looking at that today. Got the program measure requirements, project status chart. So this is the section we always talk about the large available balance. And that's why it's one of the reasons it's so important to have really specific information in your budget section. What we do, we, your project officers, we receive your budget section. We look through your APR for how much progress you're making with your activities, reaching your objectives, and we look at your spending, both what we see as drawdowns in G5 and how you explain it in section B of your APR, that budget section. We have to talk about the carryover funds. And we have to talk about, we, the project officers, have to be able to say the amount that you have encumbered or committed for your performance period. So pretty much all of you have October 1st through September 30th or whatever, budgets, right? So we want to know, you turn in your report in May. Then you have all the way through September 3rd. Is it September? 30 days has the term. Yes, September 30th. You have all the way from when you turn in your report or when you turn in your budget information that goes in your cover letter, the encumbered funds all the way through September 30th. We need to know how much that is. It's also helpful to know how much you think you'll draw down in that period. So those two numbers, we got encumbered. And does everyone know what encumbered means, the way that I'm using it? Okay. So these are funds that have been committed. You said we're going to spend this much. You have an agreement, but they haven't been drawn down yet. Drawn down means they've been taken out of G5. They're no longer in your account, and we can see that they were taken out. So we need to know the amount you have encumbered for that period from March through September 30th. And we know it's an estimate. We know it's not always going to be perfect, but we need that basic amount. And what we, the project officers, do is put that into a chart. And then our leadership, our budget office and or within OSEP and our leadership look at that. And they determine, along with us, we make arguments for or against, we determine together whether you need your entire continuation amount for the next year. That's how we determine it, right? If you're going to have a fairly large carryover, it's hard for us to say, well, they need their whole amount anyways, because if you weren't able to spend it this year, why are you going to be able to spend it the next year? That's why on top of describing that number and how you're going to spend what the encumbered funds and what you're going to spend it on, we need to know how you'll catch up the next year, right? So what will you be spending on in addition to those activities that you said you were going to do that next year that you would need other money for, that carryover balance for? Danielle.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Can you go back and explain what encumbered means as it relates to this? Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Encumbered means you have committed to using those funds. You already have an agreement through a contract or it's personnel fees that you know or personal weight personnel wages, indirect, etc. You have agreements to spend the money during that period already. It's promised already for that period. Or it could also be, you have a conference coming up. So, promised, I'm using a little bit loosely. Say you have a summer conference,
Mhm.
but you committed money to the event space, to paying the speakers, for stipends for people who are spending the day there,
Okay.
etc. So that would all be encumbered.
Okay.
It may or may not be drawn down before September 30th, right? You may have
Okay.
agreed to pay it, but maybe the contractor doesn't tell you the total amount until later, and then you draw it down.
Gotcha.
That it's drawn down to pay them. Trina.
I thought I was pretty good with the encumbrance, but now that leads me to another question.
Sure.
What's the difference? Because of course in budgeting, you write down that all this is going here and going there. So what
Yeah.
makes it then encumbered? Do you have to have a contract? I mean, what kind of that gray area? How does it get into from just a plan into
Right.
like now it's encumbered?
That is a great, and I think it's a little bit different in the consideration for different states, right? So this is where I'm a little bit careful saying exactly what it is. We often call it committed. So you've committed to using those funds, right? So it's often you already have a plan to do so, and your budget office would be aware that you plan to spend the money on those funds. They know when it's going to be happening, basically. And then it just needs to be invoiced to your budget office for them to draw down. So it's like there's already a knowledge that this is happening, that the money will be spent this way. You expect it to be about this much. Your budget office knows, whoever is carrying out the work knows that that is the case. That's kind of a layman's way of saying it, but does it make sense that way?
Yeah. Yeah, that just makes yeah, and it makes sense that there's a little bit of a maybe a gray area between we plan to do this, we put it in our budget, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then getting all those parts to work through
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like
contracts and
some things are
invoices.
always going to be that. Like when
Yeah.
you have a contract where this is how much you pay them, this is how much you pay them because they're your regular contractor, right? Like
Mhm.
say they get $50,000 every 2 months. You know that that is committed or encumbered, right? To be
Okay.
spent before September 30th, because you always do that. It will also often with contracts like that, they'll likely be drawn down right away, right? Like they know how much they know exactly how much they're going to ask for. Your budget office knows how much they're going to ask for. It'll be kind of a quick exchange, as opposed to something like a summer event where you might not know exactly how much food you'll provide, but you know the basic idea. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
especially with like professional development that we've got going on and conferences. We don't know the
Mm,
attendance yet. We don't know, there is a lot of things
right.
we
But
don't
you
know.
had to draw up estimates, right? You had to create estimates to do the work in the
Yeah.
first place. And
Okay.
so you can go off the estimates or if you have any knowledge beyond that. It's a way of talking about what is planned versus what is drawn down. And we think, if you've already said you're going to spend money and then we take that money away in your continuation or, like we want to make sure we take that into consideration when we're
Yeah.
making our decisions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm going to say for everything I'm saying, please check with your own state. Please check with all the folks in your own state and say, this is my understanding now. Is this your understanding? Right? Like make sure you have a shared understanding of how things work because it's different in every state. So I can give you the federal, like the boring federal language that doesn't really mean anything. But what I want to do is talk about the realities of it in this group and hopefully have there be an understanding because even the terminology is going to be different in different states. Like I just said encumbered, someone else is going to say obligated, someone else. I spent like 30 minutes one time with a state who was arguing what the word should be. And I was like, I have a federal word, you have a state word, we're just trying to get at this one idea of your planned spending, with agreements in place versus what has actually been taken out of your G5 account. That's the big difference. Other questions or ideas and thoughts? Something I didn't, this is not necessarily my specialty area. This isn't, I don't have any special training beyond what all the project officers get. And so I want to learn from you all as well about what your experiences are in the state. Okay. Oh, actually, I did have special training, but it was years and years ago. All right. Are carryover funds amounts that have not been spent? Okay, was that a while ago? So Danielle, is your question? Yes. So carryover funds are the amount, would be the amount that's not encumbered would be your carryover funds. That's how we're thinking about it. So the committed funds, the funds that you have a plan to use, would not be included in your carryover funds. So I'm going to put numbers together. I'm just going to make up some numbers. So you have 500,000 remaining in your G5 account. I'm typing this in case people would like the visual of it. 5,000 in G5. You have planned to use or encumbered funds $250,000. That will be for personnel costs, and you needed some new materials that you already planned to buy, some textbooks for the schools. So that means your carryover equals 250,000.
Okay.
So we will look at G5 to see what's being drawn down. And, in a specific instance, things have been reported to me, but when I looked at G5, I didn't see anything drawn down at all. Right. So that's going to matter too, right? We don't want to know that everything is encumbered, but nothing's been drawn down, because then that rings little alarms in my head. It's a red flag that maybe something is going on with the budget office and the program, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And I like to use an example. It was not a SPDIG, and it was a grant I had like 20 years ago, but nothing had been drawn down for the year, and it turned out they were taking it out of the wrong account. So that's why, I've said this so many times, you might get tired of hearing it, but please sit down with your budget folks. Maybe it's not in person. Maybe the sit down is actually like on Zoom. Talk to them at least monthly, if not more, and see if their numbers match up with your numbers. And if not, if they can explain it to you in a way that makes sense to you. And if not, keep asking the questions. Keep trying to get at that, because it can lead to real problems. Maybe you need to bring someone else in to explain it, but don't just take for granted, well, it's just at the budget office and they just don't have the same numbers. Like, that will end up causing you problems down the line.
Okay.
And I'm saying that to everyone, just so you know, Danielle, I'm not just saying it to you, I'm saying it. Everyone, have those conversations. When I had a SPDIG in Oregon, I would sit down every 2 weeks with my budget person. Back in the day, we were actually looking at paper often, but things were on computer, but we also looked at paper. And we just sit side by side with our 2 little papers and try to, make sure everything made sense to us. And that's the basic idea. All right. So let's go ahead and look at the exemplar that Arkansas was kind enough to share with us. Their previous APR, for their last year, for their previous SPDIG, I should say, probably has a good explanation too, but this is from their newest SPDIG, and it's not on the website. So special preview. All right, so they are in their first year, keeping that in mind. And you see their budget reporting period is October 1st to February 28th. And they talk about that they were lower than expected by $107,208. So they're very specific. That was what actually now I'm wondering if it was 107,000. Didn't let's keep reading. I can't remember. I've gone through all this already and put everything together, but and they talk about why, of course, which is usually people are pretty good about talking about the why. That's not usually an issue. As a result, anticipated expenditures for salaries, benefits, and associated fringe costs were not realized. Newly hired personnel contracts began July 1st. Again, welcome, Jeff. We are very glad you're here. So during this reporting period, they talk about their new personnel were funded and how and what their FTE are, and also what else they're doing. So why there were some delays. The federal shutdown was part of it, which was right at the beginning when they were trying to get everything off the ground, and I was not available to them as their project officer. So this is now they're going to describe significant changes. Due to delayed personnel onboarding, the project strategically reallocated funds to contractual support to advance core project components. These changes did not alter the scope or intent. And they always checked with me as their project officer. And so they'd email me the changes, we talk about them, then they'd email them to me, and then I email back and I say I approve these changes, and then I take that email with the approval and I upload it to G5 into their grant file so that folks can see that's the case. So these are their key contractual investments, gives the numbers. See, they've got Center for Exceptional Families. That's their parent training and information center. You must have that contract or subgrant in place every single year. At a point, they also have a university partner, and they have an LEA amount of money that's going to an LEA. Also, both are required. So even though they had staffing delays, they were still able to have these contracts go out, is the point that they're making here. They did not, didn't negatively affect them. And then this is how much they say they will have as carryover, right? So they've given me the amount of carryover. And so what I can do in a situation like this is I can take that carryover. I can look at what is in G5 currently, their number of what, say they have 600,000 in G5, and they know they're going to have about 241,000 in carryover. I could take 600,000, subtract 241,000, and that's the amount I would think would likely be encumbered for the rest of the period, because they believe they're going to, that it's planned to be spent within the budget period, and that this $241,000 will be the carryover. So I can get the encumbered. To make it even easier for your project officer to make the case that you need your continuation, you can just say how much is encumbered, right? So then she says, I'm thinking it's Becky, it could be a lot of people in the office, Becky McIver. These funds will be carried over into the next budget period and used to support full implementation of personnel positions, sustain and expand coaching and TA efforts, and she's already talked about who they're working with, continue contractual obligations that span budget periods, and scale implementation of the MAP Academy and code teaching with SIM project. All right. I'm going to need to plug in. I just got the budget or the battery low light. So what questions do you have about this example so far? And why don't I go ahead and I'm going to turn off my camera for a second. You can take a look at these expenses and how they've explained them while I find a place to plug in. Anne, I see your hand up.
Hey, I don't actually really have many questions about this. It's comforting in that this is very similar to what we submitted with our report. So I think it's just it's kind of nerve-wracking because we submit this and then we prepare budgets for our MOUs and contracts
Mm-hmm.
based on what we think our large available balance carryover is without
Mm-hmm.
knowing if that money is actually going to exist. And then we
Mm-hmm.
also are have the pressure to spend it down. So we're trying to make sure we
Yes.
use it all. And so I feel like that is where it becomes from the person working on this is gets a little stressful. And
Yes.
so I appreciate seeing the example and knowing that what we submitted is in line with that so that hopefully our justification is sufficient. But yeah, so I
Yeah.
guess I more just want to say that's where my nerves lie still, but I
Yeah.
appreciate seeing that example.
Historically, we don't, I mean, if this makes you feel any better, historically, we do not decrease the continuation funding for too many grantees
Okay.
in the SPDIC. I can't speak for other programs. Um, but it is semi-rare, and in most instances, it's worked out, right? They really didn't end up needing the money because we can always make an argument for needing money. But sometimes a state has to work really hard to use the money, and like as their project officer, when that's the case. And it's not, we want you to reach the objectives of your grant. When certain things don't work out, it is a grant, not a contract, right? So maybe sites just can't stick with you that you were planning on working with, and things happen, and your project officer will help, think through what else you could do to reach your objectives. But when things happen, things happen. It's just, um, and we do use, if we're not able to use the money for a continuation, the full amount, it goes back into the SPDIG program at that point. If we have a grantee who gets to the end of the grant and has a large amount of funds left over, that amount just goes back to Treasury, which is fine. It's still the federal, the federal dollar goes back, but um, there are some states that would like to have more money, that have more needs, that would like to grow it, and other states where just in their environment it didn't work out in the same way they were hoping. So, all right. Thanks, Anne, for sharing that. I know that's a concern. Marion has our state accounting reports and our G5 reports don't seem to reconcile. Are we safe relying on the G5? So G5 only shows you, uh, I wish I could show you G5 what I see, but I couldn't, because you'd see the specific state's information. G5 only shows what has actually been taken out of the G5 account. So you can trust G5 for the true expenditures. Marion, is that the specific question?
I get a much more specific breakdown from our state accountant. And a lot of it's kind of slippery.
Mm-hmm.
And like in the last 6 months, we had a carryover amount that increased for some reason by about $6,500. And I just
Mm.
don't understand how the carryover amount can change if we have a single carryover amount. There's some things
Yeah.
I don't get.
Well, I think I'm going to go back to what I said before. If you don't get it, stay at the table because there are instances where folks will tell you, no, this is the way it is. And you run the grant, right? Like you are in charge and you need to understand what's happening, because in the end, you're the one responsible for the funds, right? The whole state agency is really, but it's whoever's name is the project director and the authorized rep, you are signing off that you will take care of these funds and know what's happening. So it is just tell them that you have to, you're required to understand.
Right. Well, we
Yeah.
know what G5 says. We know
Yes.
what our contracts and agreements add up to.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sitting on a wing and a prayer here that we're good with that. I think we are. We were
Okay.
told our project director said they looked good.
Okay. Okay. That, I mean, I don't know. I don't know the specifics because I'm not your project officer. But I think Tennessee, right?
Alabama. I
Oh,
forgot. Alabama.
Alabama. Okay, got it. Who is your project officer now?
Anita, help me along.
Anita is okay. Anita, talk with Anita
Uh,
about it as a group. I would recommend. I'm happy to come into a conversation as well, and bring your budget people in if
okay.
that's what's needed. Have a conversation all together. I think we need to do more and more of that at this point, just to everyone get on the same page. What I saw, I don't know if it happened in Alabama, but what I saw during COVID is there was a lot of turnover when it came to the financial offices.
Mhm.
And and again, bringing up something I brought up at the beginning, when there aren't written procedures and things aren't standardized, that means turnover, it makes things very messy. And so I think we're still kind of shaking everything out. And the more we get together to talk, I think the better off we'll be. Sorry.
Thank you.
I don't, yeah, I hope it all works out. All right. Other questions? Okay. So,
I have a question.
yeah, please. That's what we're here for.
This might not be a smart question, but so I'm working on the no cost extension year. So going back to that term encumbered, are we given money in the no cost extension year to use still? Like, is there's supposed to be like a budget or a line item that reflects what was spent in the no cost extension year? Because the whole purpose of the no cost extension year is to continue to spend out. I don't
Right. So
know if I'm making
the no
sense.
cost extension, let me bring up the form so we can look through it. It's a pretty easy form.
Okay.
I'm going to show you all a couple of things while I'm doing it, just because I like to make sure everyone knows how to get around SIG Network. So the no cost extension, you get to continue to use your funds for the no cost extension.
Mm-hmm.
But I will give you an example of a SPDIG recently that requested a no cost extension and gave me the number that they expected or that they had left and how they were going to use it. And I looked at G5 and I said, this doesn't match G5. Please talk with your budget office and figure things out and come back. And it was great that they did because they figured out what the issue was and came together. So I think it's another good opportunity to say to your budget office, I am turning this amount in. Is this your understanding of what we have left? Can you show me what's on your side? Just get everything together.
Okay.
Um, so wait, what was I just going to show you something on here? Okay. So this is just general. Oh, that's what I was going to show you. This is where Arkansas's, well, that was their EBPD worksheet. These are some other exemplar continuation reports. And then some other reports. Final reports are coming soon still. I needed an exemplar, and it was taking a while to find one. So that's what I was looking at previously. Then if you go to grants, which is where you find the APR and program measures, but also the grant management. So on grant management, the first thing you find is the no cost extensions. So if you start at the top, so it talks about final reports due within 90 days. Da, da, da. You have to look at all funds before that. Here's the no cost extensions. You can request no cost extension by emailing your project officer at least 10 days before your performance period ends. You can do it well before that, but that's what's in the grants management guidance. Your project officer will also need to know the amount you have remaining in your budget, how you plan to use the remaining funds, ensure these activities relate to project goals and objectives, and how much of the budget will be used for each activity, and why you were not able to spend the entire budget within 5 years. This is where you do that. It's real basic stuff, which is nice that it's not tougher to understand. Um, and you just fill it out and email it back, and then your project officer makes the change in the system or in G5 of your dates. So
Oh,
you go ahead.
oh no, I was just saying, oh, okay.
Yeah. So in date requested, always request a whole year. It really doesn't make sense to do it any other way. You're
Okay.
not doing a second or a third no cost extension. This is your first. So just write that. And then performance period budget allocation. So what were you given for all years of your grant? And we have that, in G5 too. So we'll know. And then the remaining budget amount you have for that no cost extension period, why the funds weren't spent, and how will they be used. Please do give the amount you'll spend for each activity. It's not specified, but you're going to give this much to this contract to do this activity, this much for personnel to do these activities, etc. And yeah, so does that make sense, Danielle? Did I answer all your question?
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you. And thank you for showing me where it is too.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
didn't know that it was on the SIG Network website.
We try to make it easy, but
I appreciate
you
that.
only do it once every 5 years, so it's hard to remember sometimes.
Well, we have the 2030, so.
Yeah, that too. All right. So other questions about working with your budget office. That was good that we went directly into that discussion. I was going to ask to have that discussion anyways, and so followed the agenda. Any other questions about your budget section? What goes in there, encumbered, carryover? So as their project officer, when I was reviewing um, Arkansas's request, they gave me the carryover. Here, wait, is this the wrong one? Oh, this is the wrong one. So this is another, and you can't tell who it is. So I think I'm going to be able to show this to you. All right. Yeah, it doesn't say who it is. So let me show you one more example. I won't show you the narrative section of it. I'll just show you the budget section that they gave. So is in their budget section of their APR, they talk about these are the categories that you originally had in your 524B budget when you applied. So they're using that. So what the approved budget was what they actually spent during that time. Year two, what they had approved. So that was their original plan, what they actually spent. Year three. And so here, it talks about the carryover in year four, and then the budget for year five. So they're going into year five, and so they're giving me what they think will be their carryover, and then what they want to actually spend on those amounts. So this was encumbered codes. So they're providing the expenditures, what they encumbered. So they drew all that down already. But you can see here they had encumbered 70,000, but they only drew down 12,000. So they have 55,000 left. And so they're taking the original amount that they had planned to spend year five and adding the carryover that they have in that section. Does that make sense? And can you all see it? It's not the only way to do it. It's a way to do it, right? We don't say specifically how you have to map this out. But that's the way that they have decided to. You could also propose using the carryover in a different line item. So you could ask your project officer, we have 55,000 left from travel, but we don't think we're going to travel, any more this year than we had been planning. So could we use that to pay for another coach's partial FTE or full FTE? So that's the kind of conversation you can have with your project officer. Or if you know you want to just do more of the travel, you just do it as she did and add it to the travel. I've also seen it done where on the bottom they provide how much is carrying over till the next year. So whatever makes sense to you, as long as your project officer can understand it and you can understand it, works for us. All right. So our final area that we're going to talk about are GrantWISE meetings at the SPDIG national meeting and before that at the OSEP conference. And so I have grabbed a time at each where GrantWise can meet, and it'll just be a chance to have conversation, discussions about processes, budget, whatever you want. I'd love to know, what would you be interested in talking about specifically face to face? What would you like to have more conversation around? You can put it in the chat or you can use your audio to share.
I have a question. We have a final
Sure.
report coming up
Yeah.
after our no cost extension year, and so I think it would be helpful to walk through those in the fall as we prepare to submit that.
Sure, sure. I can give you the easy answer right away. The easy answer is it's pretty much another APR. Like
Yeah,
that's kind of the secret that they don't tell you. Like it's just your final one. It's
yeah.
finishing out the year. Yeah,
It's helpful as we're doing things to kind of have um I guess for me this would be most helpful if as I'm actually doing the work or getting ready to do it to be able to ask questions as things come up.
yeah. Oh,
So
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
so that would be
absolutely.
a request for me. So
Yeah, absolutely. We can and will you be at the OSEP conference?
no,
Okay.
no.
Okay, so
I just do, I mean, we all do different pieces in our office, but we will have
yeah.
representation there, but not
Yeah, no,
myself.
I understand completely. So why don't I add that as the next time or the time after as a topic of conversation?
Thank you.
Hmm. Okay, so let me show you all the OSEP conference, different times we have where the SPDIG is going to get together. For those of you who won't be there, we will miss you. And Danielle, I am hoping that your surgery goes well and that you're just actually getting to relax and not feel any pain at all during this time.
Thank
So
you.
you're welcome. August 4th through 5th. So Tuesday, 7 to 8 is prior to the conference beginning. There's a place for the evaluators, SPDIG evaluators to meet. There's also a new SPDIG grantee meetup. So it doesn't have to be a new grant. You can just be new to the SPDIG. So Jeff, hopefully you'll be at the OSEP conference. You're welcome to come. It says where you're meeting, what it's going to be about. The SPDIG program area meeting is going to be it's called Strategy Sandbox, solving real world implementation challenges. And so it's called a design lab, and you're going to be given a scenario. You're going to talk about it as a group, discuss it as a group, and then choose what you think is the right next step. And then you're going to hear what the research says about the right next step. So you'll be in small groups for that. And then SPDIG night that Tuesday night at Bolero, which is just like a couple blocks. Lucky Strike Bolero is just a couple blocks from the conference. You can have the food's good and the drinks are good. And then Wednesday, there's the GrantWise meetup is from 8 to 9 in the Alexandria conference room. And so it's what we meet on, but we'll take your suggestion for specific topics of conversation, and we'll see how many people are there, if it just stays as one group conversation or we break it out. At the same time, sustainability conversations, so those folks who want to think about how you plan for sustainability from the beginning of a project all the way through the lifespan of the project. So that's the OSEP conference. The SPDIG national meeting, the second morning will be when GrantWise meets. in the morning prior to the main day starting to have discussions. So that'll be in October. All right. Okay, got it. Great. Well, was so nice to spend this time with you. Thank you everyone for being brave enough to share your questions and concerns. I feel like we're already moving in the right direction. So I think you all are doing a great job, and we'll see each other in 2 months, one way or another. And we know we want to talk about final reports. And of course, we've had some other topics come up of needs, but if anything else comes to you, please just email me, jennifer.coffee@ed.gov. Right? Have a great afternoon. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.